Okay, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari, and my guest this morning, Alistair Wilcox. He's a chartered accountant and social commentator, and Amadeli Boyo. Dr. Boyo is a public affairs analyst, and just by the way, he's also a medical doctor. But we're not talking medicine today, but we're talking health, economic health.
Yes.
I mean, you know, in fact, we're talking about the ERGP, such a cryptic acronym, Economic Growth and Recovery Program, launched by the federal government in 2017. And the whole idea, of course, is, you know, coming out of the recession, how are we going to pick up again, and what were the guidelines, and what are the strategies, and nice. So we're looking at just about a year after now. I wonder what your thoughts are on how well that program is doing. There are multiple prongs to it, but let me ask you, Alistair, to take the first shot at it. First of all, there are, you know, there will always be complainers. There are those who are saying that it's hardly likely to be effective in the absence of certain other parameters. We know, but looking on the bright side, what do you think of the EGRP, Economic Growth and Recovery Program of the federal government so far? It's 1 year in.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, esteemed viewers. The EGRP program came out as a necessity to address the crippling economic circumstances the present government inherited by the time they come to power in 2015. We are all living witnesses to
but remember that what is called EGRP here, the previous regime, the Jonathan regime, sought to address similar concerns in its transformation agenda.
Yeah, but the EGRP was largely came out of the let me say the catastrophe that enveloped the economy shortly after the 2015 election, preceding the takeover of government. You discovered that all the indices of economic health were on the downward trend. We had the inflation spraying out of control. We have exchange rates running haywire. We had the forex rates. Everything was disjointed. As a matter of fact, there was like what Chinachebe said, running around in the wild with the far corner. The far corner cannot hear the far corner. Things fall apart. The center can no longer hold.
Yes.
And so we were faced then with low government income, which occasioned by the low revenue earning from oil. We are faced with low foreign exchange as a cushion to strengthen our naira, our local currency. We are faced with uncontrollable inflation. At some point, inflation got to 20%. So the government needs to come up with a specific program looking at what were the issues. The first and foremost was the disjointment in the macroeconomy. The macroeconomy was totally in a mess. Because
and that is a main thing that it is supposed to stabilize.
Yes, exactly. So the macroeconomy was running out of control. And like you said, we are already heading towards Venezuela or Zimbabwe, or both joined together. So they had to take some urgent measures to stabilize the ship of state, financial ship of state. Remember, like I said, we had just barely 27 billion in our external in our foreign reserve. Oil revenue from our mainstay oil was at its lowest ebb. Oil was selling for less than $30, $40 per barrel, and a reduced output of about 800, 700. So there was total economic chaos.
And this is what
tax, tax revenue was at its lowest ebb.
Exactly.
Public finance discipline was at all times low because there were leakages and everything. So the government needed to come up with a specific plan. First and foremost was to stabilize the macroeconomy. And that's why programs like the TSA had to come to being. A restriction of forex for certain consumables has to come to play. Tighter control on the fiscal policy. For instance, the CB has to intervene a lot to maintain the exchange, the interest rate for a couple of, and so a lot of things have to be taken. Yes, VADE was the fallout was part of the programs, the actions to be taken in bringing about sanity in the entire system.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Dr. Boyo. As you just heard him say, revenues falling drastically from oil. And Nigeria is the largest petroleum producer in Africa. And here we are, these things are going down. So it's key, and it's been realized for quite a while that we're going to have to do some creative thinking in terms of not being caught with our pants down anymore, because the vagaries of international economics will be what they are, and all our, as we say locally, all our mind concentrated on that particular revenue stream, and then we went and got what happened. So this is part of all of this. What do you think, Doctor? Do you think that we are on course towards having option Bs, so to speak, because it looked like we didn't really worry unduly about option Bs. We've been talking about diversification, but we didn't consciously worry about it. And so when the recession, when it struck, when the price of oil plummeted, we were really in a very difficult place. Do you think what is going on now, EGRP, is in the right direction towards averting such a catastrophe?
Yes. Thank you very much. It is in the right direction. The issue here is always, with everything in Nigeria, is implementation.
Yes,
yes. EGRP, Economic Recovery Program, is a wonderful document. I've gone through it, 140 pages, wonderful document. It just reminds me of the first development plan, which was really second national development plan after the Civil War. And very, very detailed. It covered so many, every aspect of human life is covered there, both health, agriculture, and everything. Now, the first thing on objective of EGRP is the restoring growth. Like he said, this was born out from the recession. We're coming out of recession. After the 2015 elections, the country went into a recession. And this program was conceived with the aim of, one, stimulating growth all over again. Second plan, which has a three-legged object. Second plan on which it's built is called investing in our people. And then the third plan, making the country globally competitive.
Exactly.
Now, if we are going to do that, they made effort to increase the level of oil production, to take care of unrest in the Niger Delta, take care of pipeline vandalization, and increase domestic production. And then, as you know, from your question, Europe and America, they're even thinking that by the year 2025, even most cars will run on electricity and no longer on oil. So there's going to be a lot of, in fact, the need for our oil will drop drastically, except when we'll be selling to developing countries and going down south to the southern hemisphere, because northern hemisphere will have moved on from oil and diesel. In fact, diesel is now being banned in Europe, in the use in many developed countries. So coming back to what you're saying, the growth plan, the recovery and growth plan has taken into consideration the fact that we will not be totally dependent on oil. It moves us away from mono economy to diversification. And it added a beautiful thing there, which is becoming business friendly. And there are things there that take care of multiple taxation and resolve issues that had to do with in fact, the growth plan accepted that doing business in Nigeria is very, very difficult and that the environment is unfriendly. It took consideration of electricity, took consideration of even registration of Corporate Affairs Commission and everything. And you will notice that the Vice President has been reissuing things called ease of doing business, All these were built in the recovery plan. But like I said earlier on, the problem is going to come from implementation. Like the macroeconomic indices, we are going for elections in about maybe 9 months' time or 8 months' time. The question is, will this program be sustained by another government? Because the next government could even truncate it and say, well, we are coming with this economic recovery program, coming with even something else entirely, and throw away this. But this is, and let me tell people who are listening to us, this is not the baby of President Buhari. It was done by so many people together. Well, baby of President Buhari, but not singular effort of one man.
But this administration.
Yeah, by this administration. But they went into so many, they brought in so many experts to do it.
Oh, yes. As I remember, up to 9 ministers, 9 federal ministers are directly concerned with the execution of this. And so much so that the way government is taking this very seriously, NESG, the National Economic
Group,
Summit Group, and the usual, they're making this, EGRP, the focus of what it is.
Of what it is today.
So in fact, the development plans and the annual budget and everything in Nigeria is supposed to be running in line with what the economic recovery program is talking about and growth program is talking about. Now, if they can do it, if it's going to be implemented, because some of the things he took care of, the corruption, for instance, he mentioned corruption, and mentioned ICT, he mentioned the fact that from primary school through secondary school, they are going to invest a lot in ICT development, and they had this plan that the internet use will move from 4 to 75% over the whole country. Electricity will move from 4 megawatts to about 10 gigawatts. And that's, 4,000 megawatts, about 10 megawatts. That 10 megawatts. And that's significant. And they even came to the point of saying that the amount being produced now, the loopholes are not just in production, then they were able to extricate loopholes in transmission and loopholes in distribution. And the fact that there are so much kilowatts lost in the process of transmission, and all these things were taken care of. Like I said at the beginning, is how these things will be implemented. Is the problem.
Exactly, because Alistair, it all sounds very, very nice, very, it's what's expected of a serious administration, but it's in the details. The angel is in the details.
Yes. Yori is rewriting the history books. It's allowed.
You know, so we've not had a boisterous reputation when it comes to executing lovely ideas and lovely papers, and there's always a first time. It's not as if things are not done, but Dr. Boyos highlighted the fact that everything depends on how well we execute. This is the whole matter. Discipline, which is a problem, which goes back to corruption, which is also a key part of all of this. But it's principally financial discipline, isn't it? And plugging all the loopholes.
Yes, that is very, very key. And if for anything, some of us that so much love this administration and has always put our life on the line, put our reputation on the line for it, we believe in that aspect of the leadership quality and leadership dexterity of the president, in seeing that aspect of our life, which has been the bane of so many flip-flop and failures, is addressed, and addressed vigorously. Now, when we're talking about implementing plans, you cannot diverge that with resources availability in implementing those plans. Unfortunately, Nigeria runs a federation whereby you have this federal, state, and local government. Now, resources are, now you can only account for the federal resources that's under your purview. You can only exert controls and effective monitoring of those ones. But I tell you, Vori, the amount of disjointment that some of these plans that should have cascaded down to the grassroots, that comes in from the second and third tier of governance, it's humongous. And so even while at the center, there is determination, there is effectiveness, because let's face it, who touches both of us more is the state and local government. That is where the bulk of whatever programs, if it's not cascaded down and there is a proper alignment and key in at every strata, then there's a lot of disjointment. Now, let me tell you a few things that the government has done.
One moment, please. Could you hold it? Well, let me bring in Mazi Okoroafo, who has called in from Arochukwu, and then you pick up the stream again. Good morning, Mazi Okoroafo.
Good morning, Sayori. Good morning, our guests in the studio.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mazi.
On this security, Nigeria, with all the natural resources, we continue complaining, continue suffering, continue fasting and fasting compulsively. Now, what I've just said that if the federal government can make it a law, come 2019, that all the states, you should try as much as possible and tap your own natural resources in your own state. Local government, tap your natural resources. By the time we do all these things, I bet you states will not be dependent on the federal. It's very, very funny. Look at oil. Nigeria produces oil, and countries come, we sell oil to outside the world. Now, the outside world we are selling the oil to, they use our oil to produce over 6,000. I repeat, over 6,000. I repeat, over 6,000 materials. Now, a country that produces banana, we now import all those over 6,000 into the country back. That is why we are facing a lot of problems. Why not Nigeria as a country sit down? All this oil we do, let us sit down now. Make sure that our refineries are functional. They will not produce all those things. Now, you see, everyone, you come to a situation, Go to our Nigerian universities, we have problems. There are no hostels, no lecture rooms, and we are complaining. Come to the market. I went to the market yesterday. It was just I asked for that. How much is this? They said it's 200 naira. When I talk about that, what of 100 naira? If you see how the woman frown her face, honestly, I said, sorry, I just left that place. Now that will show that even frustration and just already inside the market. That is what we should call a spade because we have intellectuals, we have authority, we have people that are talented, but they are not given the opportunities to do all this. It's very important. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day in Lagos and happy weekend to everybody.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Mazi Okorowa, for calling in. Yes, I want to.
Yes, let me just explain my thoughts on that.
Okay, can you do that very, very briefly because I want to go to Dr. Boyo.
Yes. So you discovered that we have always been looking at in this country. When we looked at the president appointment in the area of security appointments, and we are keep shouting, oh, it's lopsided, and we're not looking at what touches us more, the economic team of the government. And how the government has been able, as this team has been able to, work assiduously to even get us to where we are today. And we're not considering all those efforts.
Indeed.
Let me allow Doctor to come in.
Dr. Boyo, Mazi Okorowa spoke about the states, and it touches on something I wanted to bring up too. It would have been ideal, and I think it has been counseled, that the states themselves should domesticate EGRP. But it's an optional sort of a thing. It's not as if by law. Ms. Mazi was talking about by some aspects of this thing need to be by law. Just like when we leave things to choice here, people often don't go for the high road. We're talking about declaration of assets. The president did it, the vice president did it, maybe some other people did it. But what we're saying is that only a handful of people did it. Was it domesticated by all the governors? Did all the governors queue up and say they were following example and that they all committed and on board to this? Not so, and that, it's like you can't really fault them because is it a law? Were we breaking any law? Now, this domestication of the EGRP, do you think it would have helped if it could come into being, where all the states also have their own take on it and are following the guidelines of it?
Thank you very much. That's my dream, because if it was in a military era, it will just go down the ladder. But it doesn't work like that here. Because people complain a lot about government. Before I left, I was coming, somebody told me, are you going to television? Tell them country is hard. Country is hard, not just because of the federal government. The way the state and local governments, the roads in your immediate neighborhood, it's not the federal road. The things in the market, the federal government has its responsibility, the state and the local. I would have wanted this economic recovery and growth program to be transmitted down to even local government and let everybody in the country even have a copy like the Constitution, because it's so beautifully written out that if it is followed, within the next 5 years, this country will change. If corruption is taken, let me give you an example of the five.
It's a very important thing you said. I don't think as many of us as needs to actually understands what the economic growth and recovery program
That's why it should be written in five major languages, for instance, and transmitted around the country. And if possible, we should also discuss it at a state level and accept it. Because let me take example, the stabilizing the macroeconomic environment. That's the first pillar of it. And that's federal government that can do that. But when it comes to things like agriculture and food security, the federal government doesn't run farms.
Exactly.
The federal government can run agricultural extension services from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. But the states own the land. States own the land. The states can go ahead and do food security and agricultural security. Energy sufficiency. Some states have met with the various GenCos and everything to say, look, can't states produce some level of electricity? I'm aware that Bayelsa State, Lagos, and some states have developed capacity and worked on capacity to produce electricity. Then he talked about improving transportation infrastructure. Transportation infrastructure cannot work without state government, because state roads are more than federal roads. Federal roads are the interstate roads. Within every state, every city capital, every town, there are state roads. Within towns, there are local government roads. So when we talk about improving that, it talks about driving industrialization.
So the states, on the point of the states, of course, they're not saying they're not part of it, but Are they taking an active part?
States claim
question.
States that cannot even pay salaries. In fact, I'm always surprised when there are 19 gubernatorial candidates fighting for a position in the state that has not paid salaries for 9 months. For 9 months. And I ask myself, if this state is unable to pay salaries, why are people so keen on taking over the state that doesn't have money to pay salaries? So we come back to the same thing again, which is what I was talking about, driving industrialization. In those days,
sorry, sir. Reverend Dominic has been holding on for a while in our Limosho. Good morning, Reverend.
Good morning, Yori.
Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, you are wonderful guest.
Good morning, sir.
Reverend.
Yori, can I be frank to you?
Sure.
As much as I elected as I am, I don't know the meaning of that document. I've seen it. I have tried to read it.
Yes.
I couldn't make meaning out of it.
Okay.
How? As much as I elected as I am, let me tell you the reason. I live at Lafikondo here. At the Dumu local government, in the front of the office, the road has broken down. I made an effort to say, who will repair a road that broke down in front of the Dumu local government? They told me it's a state road. How could a man in Ikeja, Alausa, who come and repair a road in a local government in front of local government? Until we break down these things from federal to state to local government, just as we call it, what touches me and you most is local government governance. If you have economic recovery in the federal, in Abuja, and it doesn't get to state, it doesn't get to local government, how does it affect the man we are planning for? Me, maybe on the ground here. And because I don't know it, and if I don't know it as educated as I am, I wonder who knows it, and I wonder how we're going to implement it. Come and say local government. Let me leave that. Go to my state, Imo State, which is a disaster in government working. This man has been owing salary for months and years. How could this recovery get to Imo State, get to the teachers, get to civil servants? You are owing almost 1 year. What we are doing here is what happens in 90. So please listen to me. We have good documents in this nation.
Okay.
We have intelligent to draw good government, good documents. But do we implement it? If you go back to Vision 2020 of Abacha, if we have implemented that document, Nigeria will be UK today. I mean, Abacha, as terrible as that man, his Vision 2020, go and read that document. If we have implemented Vision 2020 of Abacha, Nigeria will not be where it is today. The document is not the issue. It's implementation and our system. We speak it in Alaba, Abuja, Eiffel Tower. It doesn't get to state. The local government here talking about which their road have broken down in their office. Doesn't know what it means. And they're waiting for somebody in Ikeja to come and repair it. That will not work. This economic recovery, we must start with a layman language from local government to the state, to the federal. If we start from up down and not down up, it will not work. I don't know what it means. Sorry for my illiteracy. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for calling in, Reverend Dominic. And I dare say maybe a lot of other educated Nigerians might just be, because it seems a bit esoteric.
No, let me say this.
But maybe that's one of the reasons, one of the good things that the Economic Summit Group is using it as a focus.
Let me say this. The unfortunate situation about our climb here is the fact that the press is so guilty of passing the right information to the populace. Since 2015, what has been the focus of our journalism, our analysis, and everything? Nigerians are suffering. That is all it. Criticism of the government. Nobody is conscientiously, no programs are apart from maybe programs like this, conscientiously passing across the nitty-gritty of government programs that you are supposed to key in. If you go to the market today, you ask the market woman, why is egusi expensive? Is it not Buhari? Change now. You go to the boss, you enter the boss today.
Yes.
Oga, why is boss expensive? Is it not change Buhari? People are
reacting negatively to discipline.
They have been brainwashed.
Well, okay.
To believe in, and that is because of what they hear, and that is why we don't have. Sorry to say it, we don't have responsive journalism, responsive commentary about the nitty-gritty of government programs.
Wait a minute. Whose fault is that? The federal government itself.
No.
Are you sure that they're doing all that they can to put this where it should be?
The much they are doing, depending on what the editorial content of those that will spread it.
Okay.
For instance, if a live Mohammed comes on air now to tell you what is happening, to most media houses, they are looking at the negative aspects not believing what he's saying or not accepting what he's saying, but telling you how Lai Mohammed was propaganda when he was APC, when he was on the position and all whatnot. So you pass the wrong. I'm not surprised that a respected, educated man like Reverend Dominic will tell you he doesn't know. And it's true. And that, if he doesn't know, how can
he might not be in the minority at all?
He's not in the minority. How can he cascade to the man on the street? Today, everybody attention is focused, and I've always said it each time I come on air, focus on Abuja's budget.
Okay.
We have 9 trillion budget.
Yes.
Nobody talks about the cumulative over 10 trillion budget of the 33 states, excluding local governments. Nobody talks about what happened to those.
One moment. I want to go to a very far place.
Sorry.
Like Norway.
Wow.
Norway, where Anthony is waiting for us. Good morning, Anthony.
Good morning, Uncle Yore.
Good morning, sir. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Uncle Yore, what I want to contribute, I'm a Nigeria, okay, but I live in Norway, okay? And I follow your program anytime I'm not at work, okay? See, let me tell you, Nigerian politicians, they are joking with the Nigerian people life. The last caller, what the last caller has said about when someone is living in Ikeja to come and fix road in another local government in Lagos State. Uncle Yore,
no, he's talking about the state government. He's talking about the state government leaving the, its own base to go and repair a road in front of a local government.
Yeah, but generally, what I want to let Nigerians and Nigerian government and Nigerian politicians to know today is that they are really joking with the life of human being. If you call it a place like Norway where we're living today, quite all right, Norway is a small country in Europe. But in this particular place, Uncle Yore, is local government. Every local government has rights. Every local government are the one that is repairing roads, fixing, doing everything for their people. It got nothing to do with power. It's nothing to do with Abuja, federal government or not federal government. Local government has power. Local government have their own construction company here. Local government have their own everything, engineering. Local government, every road that has spoiled this place, is local government is fixing it. Anything, hospital, run by local government. If you are working, the tax you are paying to the local government here. Uncle Yore, every benefit, if I tell you the kind of benefit the human being has in this country, you will say it's no.
It's true.
It's true.
Especially
in places like Norway,
Finland,
all the Scandinavian governments,
all those places.
A pregnant,
Yes.
pregnant woman. Can you imagine that a pregnant woman, the day that doctor has confirmed that a pregnant in this country, he is entitled to get almost 2 million naira to buy equipment for the child?
Okay. I understand what you're saying. Thank you very much for calling in, Anthony. Really appreciate your call. We're going to go on a break, but it's interesting what he brought up because it borders on the conversation on restructuring when he says the politicians are not serious there, and then contrasts it with how local government is able to be up and doing in his experience. Yeah. But we know the reasons why the local government cannot go that way here.
The money stops.
They were going that route before.
Before. Let me go on a quick break. We'll be right back and we'll continue this. And we'll continue with your call. Stay with us, please. Welcome back. We're looking at EGRP, just slightly over a year after its launch, and how well it's doing and what are the challenges. And for sure, it's definitely something that we need. We don't have a choice about this, but is everybody keyed into it? Does everybody understand it? And it's transpiring that maybe it's thought to be one of those arcane subjects in ivory towers and think tanks and all professorial. Yeah, it is all of that too. But at the same time, everybody should be able to key into it. Now, we just heard from Anthony calling in, and observing that where he's situated, he no doubt is wishing that we also had something similar. But we know that the local governments can't play like that, not with their governors, not the way things are. I don't know whether there's not a misplaced contestation for power and authority, and if this has anything to do with it. Whose turn was it? Okay, please, sir.
Yeah, I mean, we have to go back to the 5 feet of the Economic Recovery and Growth Program, and you see that after the 5, the federal government can only concentrate on 2. Yes. The 5 is the macroeconomic stabilization. The second one, they talked about achieving agriculture and food security, ensuring energy sufficiency, improving transportation, and driving industrialization. Now, transportation and industrialization is where the state and local government will come in, because macroeconomic policies will be done by the federal government in terms of exchange rate, controlling inflation and things like that. But the state government, and we're going to election year, we should be asking our governors what they have done in the last 4 years. Not just it's good to put the federal government to task, and we're indeed putting the federal government to task. In response to what is said, it's not just the fault of the media. This government too has failed in publicizing its activities effectively. So at the end of the day, if you don't blow your trumpet, somebody will blow your trumpet with a different music.
Yeah, discordant tone.
So, and even maybe use the song to attack you yourself, using your own trumpet. So the commission, the Minister of Information, plus the National Orientation Agency and other parastatals of government should say, maybe change the name from Economic Recovery and Growth Program to be like a Vision 2030 or something that can be easily understood. But the point is that the federal government can concentrate on the macroeconomic indices. They can concentrate on energy, even though we have said before that energy sufficiency is something that both the state and federal government can do. Now, why are the local governments not performing? The money that is given to the local governments end up with the state government. And the state governments only pay the local government money for salaries. And about 70% of money spent at federal level is for recurrent expenditure. No country can move forward if so much is spent on recurrent expenditure and very little is spent on capital expenditure. So when you look at the growth program, the industrialization, they talk about small, medium, micro, and small, medium, and micro enterprises. Those things, again, the local government can take part in.
Exactly. And it's been said that this is going to have a tough time succeeding, this whole program, without the SMEs.
Yes.
Without the SMEs.
Yes. And this program now has the SMEs as a fourth plank in industrialization through public-private participation, driving industrialization through technology, and involving and growing the SMEs.
Okay, one moment. Opera in Victoria Island, good morning. Mr. Opera, are you there? Opera in Victoria Island, good morning, sir. It looks like there's a problem. He's not catching us.
Yes.
Did you want to comment on that? The SMEs are also crucial.
Yes,
to this.
very crucial. Very crucial. And I think, to me, and like we said, the unfortunate thing is that I don't know the information architecture or information policy or concept of the government. Really, if for any intent and purpose, to some of us who are ardent supporters of this government, we are not satisfied with what is happening in terms of publicizing. Because really and truly, like you said, if you don't publicize it in the right direction, it will be used against you. Every policy the government has come up with has been used against the government. And there are no rebuttal. Look, the government has commissioned major rail projects.
No, I think there are rebuttals.
The
press might not have picked it up.
Yes, no,
somebody has complained. They might not have picked it up.
The editorial content of the press. Whatever they do. And without apology, some TVC is not an exception. I sometimes get mad, get angry with some of the news content, you know, because if you have to be a proper journalist, they must take at all sides at all times. So, all the rail projects commissioned by the government, what do you get? It's a backlash. Rather than seeing the positive aspect of it. Oh, it's not the government that did it. It was started by XY government.
Okay. So,
and all those,
nitpicking.
Yes, let us look at how much the government has invested in this social enterprise program. The latest one has been this money, market money something, where small scale businesses have been encouraged. Is that, how many publicity have we given to that? We're not. Rather, we're seeing it, is it because of election? We read the wrong meanings to
if you don't blow your trumpet,
positive
somebody
things.
will blow it for you.
It goes back to that.
But
If
at the
you
same
don't
time,
blow your own trumpet.
but at the same time, there must be, we know a person like Muhammad Buhari, it's a very, very quiet,
Reticent.
decent person. He's not a propagandist. He does things with his conscience and allows his conscience to vary what it does. But at the same time, the men and women of goodwill should be able to pick it up from there. Because I tell you something, the Bank of Industry has done a lot in encouraging small and medium-scale businesses. CBN has committed so much money in agriculture production and services. A lot of these are going on in the system. A lot of people are farmers. Farmers have grown in leaps and bounds in this country today. But
that doesn't get reported.
No, these are not.
It's not highlighted.
Even the beneficiaries, and no, the worst part of it, even the beneficiaries, because of their perceived, let me not use the word hate, but their perceived negative concept about the APC or the president, they are the beneficiaries, and they will criticize it. So it is a very, very dangerous
Joshua in Ogun State. Good morning, Joshua in Irewole.
Okay, how are you, Uncle Yori?
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for calling in.
Happy weekend to you and your guests.
Indeed, thank you.
I just have to commend you again. I don't know why you have chosen to be different, and I'm not a psychophant. But when I hear what is good, I'm glad about it. I thank your guests for doing justice to this talk. I think we have to go the way of building strong institutions. I don't know how long that is going to take us, but that's the way, that's the direction. We have to entrust our growth to institutions, not to individuals.
Okay.
And I must say, of course, people are saying things are hard, but I know that growth is a process. I'm not a politician, but for once, I feel that we have a government that wants to think right. But like your guests have said, people have been conditioned to believe that Buhari is bad. So there's nothing really we can do about it. But I think we should go in the direction of building very strong institutions, our local government, our state, and the federal. Everybody should be able to do their own part. And as citizens, we should buy into the government and decide to grow the country ourselves. Okay. No matter how much we complain, nothing is going to change unless we make that change happen for ourselves. Thank you, sir, and happy weekend to you.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Irewole, and the kind words you also say. That's down to the production team, you know. No. Mr. Joshua Irewole has just finished speaking. Oh, did I say Mr. Irewole? I meant Mr. Joshua in Irewole. Thank you very much for those nice things you said. It's down largely to the production team coming up with these themes.
TM is different.
You know, coming up with these themes that we need to be addressing. Yeah. That's the difficult thing that Joshua brings up there. The fact that if you want that, the maxim, if you want anything done and done right, then you better do it yourself. Yeah. You can extend that principle to what we have here. I wonder how enthusiastic we are, because he also explained what you guys have also highlighted, that there's so much negativity, unfortunately, where you're not giving people a fair shake. Criticize by all means, but at least can we just talk about the efforts that are on ground and the effect that these efforts are having, and how it would be even much more so if everybody were to come on board. You've spoken about the government itself shooting itself in the foot via its information policy. I mean, it must be doing well. It no doubt thinks it's doing well. But there's so many things, and how they strategically choose those ones that people need to know about. It might not be the most salacious. It might be indeed quite dry because of its arcaneness, but it's indispensable.
Yeah, and that's because
it's indispensable to our development.
The government has to move away from denial. The government is not a popular government right now for reasons of security issues, reasons of the breakdown in the factions of the ruling party. And there's a lot of what we call on the street bad belle outside there. And the bad belle, the Nigerian parlance for ill feeling, is not just coming from Abuja. There's a lot of negativity in the air coming from the herdsmen issue, the Boko Haram issue, and the fact of general insecurity in the country, kidnapping in the east, and all those things, and the fact fact that the government has not addressed these issues head on.
And also political differences.
Yeah, political differences. Coming to say, look, this Boko Haram, we are against it. This herdsmen issue, what they have done is by setting up an inquiry with a white paper, picking up those people directly responsible, and people finding out that all those ideas have been caught, they have been dealt with according to the law of the land, and they have been put away with. Even if we don't
all of that might have helped his PR, is what you're saying.
Yes, all of that.
If they had moved like that.
Yes, but a lot of people just feel that the government has been acquiescing and has been sort of turning a blind eye, and the tendency is to think that because the president from a particular part of the country,
but
you see, you don't have to say it's not true. You have to prove it's not true. By coming out regularly, you have to brand yourself and you have to stand for what you stand for. If people have seen all these things, you take care of the herdsmen crisis, take care of Boko Haram, and then begin to explain to people what you are doing.
The image might have been different.
Yes.
Okay, can't keep Charles in the UK waiting any longer. Good morning, Charles. Good morning, Charles.
Hello, Mr. Okoyori.
Okay, good morning, sir. Good morning. Please go ahead.
Good morning, your guest, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah, Okoyori, my take is this, on this issue. Like your guys there your guest there, like when people are talking about things is very hard in Nigeria, there's hardship. It's not only about Buhari's government. It's about the politicians that doesn't know how common man feel in the country. We are talking about Nigeria. It's owned by all Nigerians, the revenues, the natural resources, but the masses, the common man doesn't have any benefit on that. There is just a kind of small percentage of politicians that share everything. They can make a proposal, but how to carry the proposal out. They can do all kind of things, how to solve the problem of Nigeria. But the politicians are not willing because they don't want the masses to benefit from anything, rather than just see them as the God, that they are the one that created everyone in Nigeria. That is a very wrong way. Like when people are talking about the local government, the state, the Abuja, whatever, I live in the United Kingdom, Theresa May doesn't know anything about the Southeast where I'm living. They have the local people who are taking care of everything. That is the reality. It's not every time governor will run to Abuja. When he has problem with his own constituency, he's run to Abuja to complain to president. It doesn't work that way. They see themselves as, they don't know that they are the servants of the people because they get their pay by the people.
Okay.
The resources belong to the people, not them.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Charles. Appreciate your call. So the EGRP, the P part of it is that it's a plan.
ERGP, sir.
Sorry, EGRP.
ERGP. Economic Recovery and Growth Program.
Exactly. Don't put both words.
It has everything together.
It has everything together, but the order is important. Economic Recovery and Growth Plan.
Yes.
Or program.
Yes.
Well, it's a program. You can also say it's something of a plan.
Okay.
These programs, these plans, the reason why it is so is that they need to be followed. They're not just there for the decoration.
No.
And whether everybody is signed up, that is what, when Charles says that the politicians in there, well, that's because they are the public players and they indeed will be directing policy. And everybody isn't signed up. It harks back to the point you're making that what is government doing itself to publicize this whole matter so that everybody knows of the plan, the program that we are running.
And their rules, and their various rules.
Yes.
There's a state government rule, there's a local government rule, and there's individual rule.
Indeed.
Every
everybody, so that they all integrate.
Let me just say this. People keep saying, allow state to exploit their resources. Allow state to exploit their resources. In the First Republic, states were exploiting their resources. What resources were states exploiting? We all knew that in the First Resources, we are majorly an agrarian society. Agriculture is on the concurrent list with larger interest in the states and local government because they own the land. Ogun State alone can feed the entire world with cassava production if they harness the resources available in the land. But what do we have? We build camps, big church camps and universities that are producing nothing.
Oh dear, oh dear.
I'm sorry, I have to be very blunt about this.
Yes.
If a cassava farm as big as one of the camps along Lagos-Ibadan Express Road, cassava farm.
Like for example? No,
then withheld. Cassava farm is as big as that. Then tell me the export potential of cassava in the entire world that will emanate from that.
But that's not...
All we talk about is mineral resources, mineral resources. It's Abakaliki rice, finished. Who stop Abakaliki in Ebonyi from harnessing the resources of the rice and salt resources embedded in their community? Laziness and bulk passing. We have not educated people enough to hold their domestic, their local leaders accountable for their lives. Rather, we are pointing their eyes towards Abuja, and that will never help the people.
Ni in Shagam, Ogun State, good morning.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me well?
Loud and clear.
Okay, well, I just have a solidarity message for Mr. Woodhouse. First of all, he shouldn't lay his life down for any government. And number two, I'd rather suggest that we explore the possibility of actually preparing a budget without the input of revenue from our crude oil sales, and just limit our budget to what our expectations are on receivable tax income, and see how we can go from there. That's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Well, those two things he addressed, I don't know. VADES takes care of one of those aspects.
Yes.
Even though, I think the authorities have said that as a result of that exercise, something like 20 billion has been realized from the voluntary assets.
The tax drive of the government
that's
is
out
massive.
of a target of 307.
Yes.
You know.
Why don't you look at it, Mr. Henry? Kaduna State, as of 2017, internally generated revenue was 22 billion. Imo State, 6 billion. Lagos State, 333 billion. Now, if Imo State, with all the, Imo State, I know Kaduna State has schools, it has a big university, it has a polytechnic, it has Katsina University and things. It has Ahmadu Bello University. But Kaduna State is basically an education state. Imo State, it's right here. Imo State has 6 billion. Kaduna State has 22 billion. The state's internally generated revenue is low. The whole of the Southeast in 2016 was 44 billion. And Lagos State,
Kano had. Kano had over 44
and
billion.
Lagos State has 300 and something billion. Now, if you are complaining about the federal government and you're saying oil is low, how much are you generating? Why can Anambra, with the factories in Unewi, with the big market in Onitsha, and the several industries in Anambra State, generate an internal revenue that is higher than even Kaduna and some other states? You can't believe it that Borno State, with all its wars, is generating more internal revenue than some states in the south.
Than Ekiti State.
So what are we talking about?
Borno State, with all the
challenges,
has more in
people are not
than
ready.
Ekiti State.
People are not ready to question their governors. They're not ready to question their local government chairman. And this thing, this economic recovery and growth plan,
market that look. I said it on this program sometime. What late Chief Mbakwe did, the work he did in the old Imo State between 1979 and 1983. Imo State is now 3 states. Okay, 2.5 because Ebonyi is part of it. I tell you, his achievement in that axis has not been surpassed by the 3 governors combined together for the past 19 years of democratic rule.
Last year, Abia State had an internal generated revenue.
Rich people,
Abia
rich
State
governors
had an internal generated revenue of 14 billion and Kwara 19 billion.
Okay.
Can you imagine that? So at the end of the day, these governors are not harnessing this revenue. If Abia State
it's another producing state too. It's another producing state.
Yes, at 14, well, they're all producing money will not come. I said it will come through 13% derivation and through federal government. But internal generated taxation in Abia State is giving them 14 billion, and Kwara State here
17.
Kwara State here 17. So we need to tell these people, how come these other states 19, Abia State 17, how come these other small states in the north with all their challenges are doing better than the average state in the south?
Let me bring in Johnny. Johnny is in Bradford, the United Kingdom. Good morning, Johnny.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you for calling in.
I'm enjoying your program. I'm a Nigerian. I'm a specialist in international relations, University of London and Kiel. I am an academic. I think that the APC government inherited a huge, colossal economic problem, political problem, particularly Boko Haram, financed by Iran, And nobody in Nigeria, not in one of your intellectuals, because Nigeria has huge intellectual journeys, not one of them has ever cited Iran is financing Boko Haram in the northeast of Nigeria. That is another point I want to point out. With regard to local government, when I graduated in international relations, I worked for local government in the United Kingdom. I was dealing with social services. I was dealing with contracting out privatized public sector services. I studied economics, international law. I also enjoy human rights debate because I volunteer for Amnesty International. So I believe Nigeria is amazing because Nigeria has huge freedom. Unfortunately, the way the debate is been targeted on personality is Buhari or the government, but you have to look back where Nigeria came from. The founding fathers, Obafemi Awolowo, Azikwe, Abubakar, Muhammadu, all of them, they were murdered. When I was a child in Nigeria, 6-year-old, the Civil War, 1966 to 70. I tried to do my PhD on Nigeria Civil War. Racism destroyed my PhD, so I couldn't complete it where I'm calling you Bradford, University of Bradford, the north of England. So I think that you have excellent team of commentators, intellectuals, academics, journalists who would put the government program out there. Yes, you are absolutely spot on, but the government has not put its case yet to the public.
All right,
what it inherited from the previous government, Jonathan Goodluck, to the present, it is facing since 1998. I was writing to the British government letters every day for 10 years.
All right.
From 1998 to 2008, warning the British government.
Johnny, I'm so sorry. We've run out of time. We really appreciate your call and indeed your perspectives. We've run out of time completely. And Johnny's comments hark to what has been said here, how it's like we're winking in the dark.
In the dark, exactly.
We're winking in the dark.
And
so we seem to be the only person who knows we're winking.
Who knows
but we need to, step out into the light
and also take up the
see
state
what is
government.
going.
Like I said before, Ekiti State had an internet generated revenue of 4 billion, less than Borno State.
Yes, how can
less
that
than
be?
Borno State. How can that be?
How serious are we?
How serious are we?
We've run out of time. But
so please, I think in closing, my appeal is to my fellow countrymen and women. That look, a better Nigeria is for everybody's good. It's not for Buhari's good. It's not for APC good. It's for everybody's good.
Politicians that tend to talk to my fellow
and then I need to. I'm not a politician.
My fellow countrymen and women.
We owe the responsibility to ourselves, our generation, our country. Look, this is a good document.
Yes.
Perfect document that if we follow it, the next election, if we have this government in place and they continue to do this, Nigeria will be out of the wood. And let us hold our states and local governments accountable for everything that they should be held accountable for.
And that's
rather looking at Abuja.
ERGP. I got the order right.
Good.
That's ERGP.
ERGP.
Yes. ERGP.
Yes.
That is the economic
recovery
and growth plan. Is it plan or program? Plan is okay. Even if you put program, no spoil. But I think it's plan. Thank you very much.
Give him a chance to
say you did, but
I
okay.
did
Go.
This government
30 seconds.
This government has to rebuild public confidence by facing the herdsmen crisis, facing the Boko Haram crisis, coming out to take responsibility for its failure in the area of security and say, look, we need to reinvent the security network and give confidence to the people that this government is not...
Failure in the area of security.
Yes.
Amadeli.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's the average. That's what the man on the street believes in.
It's an ongoing work.
Whatever it's an ongoing work, the government should rescue its reputation in that area.
The man on the street
very well.
They say I don't have time to argue the point.
And now sell this ERGP program from the local government through the state.
They say I can't argue the point. I don't have the time. But thank you for saying they're doing well. Amadeli Boyo, thank you very much. And Alistair Wilcox, thank you very, very much. Okay, so that's our program. Do have a great weekend. God willing, we'll be back Monday with a fresh edition. I'm Yori Folani. Bye-bye for now.